For over 2 decades, one vault remained untouched beneath the shadows of Kensington Palace, sealed by Diana herself and guarded under silent royal decree. But when Prince William broke protocol and opened it, expecting family memories, he instead unearthed a truth so devastating it shook the monarchy's core and left him questioning everything he believed about his mother and his wife. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The vault was never meant to be a secret, not publicly at least, but quietly within royal corridors. It was treated as something more than off-limits. It was sacred and feared. Hidden beneath layers of marble and silence, it bore nothing but the initials DS on its bronze faceplate. The staff spoke of it in hushed tones, calling it the ghost room. When Prince William passed by it as a child, he never asked. As a man, he never dared. Until the day a letter arrived unsigned, postmarked in Edinburgh, containing only one line. The vault holds the vision she feared would die with her. The writing style was eerily familiar, and while no one confirmed it outright, William suspected it was from Princess Anne. She had always protected Diana in her own way, and this, it seemed, was her final nudge. It took 3 separate keys to unlock the vault. One, stored within the Queen's former archives at Windsor. Another, hidden behind a loose panel in Diana's old apartment. And the third, reportedly in Charles's private collection, a key William secured during a late-night visit under the pretext of reviewing coronation documents. Every move he made was quiet, strategic, deliberate. Even Catherine didn't know why he had become increasingly distant in the days leading up to it. His heart raced as the locks gave way. Dust escaped the edges of the vault as though the air itself had been holding its breath for years. He expected photographs, handwritten letters, maybe even a few of Diana's personal effects, a scarf, a bracelet, something sentimental. But what he found instead was a thick folder wrapped in red velvet. Atop it sat a parchment bearing Diana's signature and one chilling line, "To the one who must finish what I started." As he read through its contents, confusion turned to disbelief. Diana had named Catherine, not William, not Harry, as the sole heir to what she called her personal vision. No explanation, no justification. Just a signed legal declaration, dated barely a month before her death. For William, it wasn't just a surprise, it was a rupture in the narrative he had always believed. And beneath the velvet, something darker waited, documents that didn't just pass along sentiment, but power. But what exactly did Diana mean by personal vision? As William peeled back the velvet lining of the vault, a deeper betrayal lay buried, one tied not to riches, but to destiny itself. Hidden within the vault was a document never seen by royal legal counsel. A second, secret will penned by Diana. And in a move no one could have predicted, it bypassed both her sons entirely, naming Catherine as the future steward of Diana's legacy. Why Catherine? Why now? And what power did this vision entail? The folder William opened didn't resemble anything processed through official palace channels. It lacked the institutional watermark, the stiff binding, the cold finality of royal legal documents. Instead, it felt personal. It felt like a warning and a wish bound together. The second will was handwritten, graceful, deliberate, unmistakably Diana's. But what it contained threatened to undo everything the firm had quietly crafted since her death. Diana declared that Catherine, then a complete outsider, merely a university student in the public eye, was to inherit not titles, not money, but the weight of her unfinished mission, the legacy of compassion over protocol, of presence over power. This wasn't about jewels or gowns, it was about voice, Diana's voice, and whom she believed would carry it forward when the palace tried to drown it out. She wrote of her sons with love, but also with brutal clarity. William, she feared, would one day be trapped by duty, wearing a crown heavy with compromise. Harry, she noted, might seek escape rather than confrontation, and could be swayed by affection more than allegiance. But Catherine, Diana described her as the quiet force I was never allowed to be. She had observed her from afar, seen her grace under the spotlight, her instinct to withdraw rather than dominate. Diana wrote, "She will never ask for power, which is why she must be given it. She will not bend the monarchy to her will, but she may one day save it from collapse." The will outlined a plan of quiet influence letters stored with global human rights leaders, audio tapes addressed to Diana's trusted charities, a private address book with handwritten notations beside names like Mandela, Mother Teresa, and even media moguls Diana had once counted as frenemies. It was a blueprint, not for rebellion but for reform. And in the center of it all was Catherine. The will was dated just 23 days before Diana's death in Paris. The timing was impossible to ignore. William sat in silence, the weight of his mother's judgment sinking in. He wasn't betrayed, but he was shaken, not just by the contents, but by the possibility that Catherine had been chosen for something she never even knew she inherited. She had stood beside him through scandal, pressure, and war, but never imagined that behind closed vaults, his own mother had crowned her, quietly, in her final act of defiance. And William wasn't angry. He was afraid. Because now he knew Catherine's future had been written long before either of them understood the stakes. Still reeling from the emotion, blow, William turns the page only to find something even more shattering. Diana hadn't just entrusted her hopes to Catherine. She had warned her sons about who would try to destroy them. In her own handwriting, Diana spelled out what royal insiders had only dared whisper for years. "If anything happens to me," she wrote, "look not beyond the palace but within it." What Prince William found next were names, motives, and coded references to betrayal, jealousy, and a campaign to erase her from history, and Catherine's role in preserving it. Beneath the second will lay a smaller bundle of papers, each sheet brittle with time, yet burning with urgency. At the top was a page marked Trust and Treachery. Diana had compiled a list divided into two columns. One was titled Those Who Guard and the other Those Who Erase. William's eyes scanned the names and his heart sank. Under those deemed trustworthy, there were few surprises. Princess Anne, her former butler Paul, and surprisingly, a discreet note about a young Kate Middleton, then just a shadow in the public eye, described as noble of spirit, invisible in ego. But it was the second list that rattled him. Among the names were individuals still embedded in palace affairs, some now closely allied with his stepmother, Camilla. Diana had marked them with symbols, some names with question marks, others with chilling clarity: obeys Charles, leaked press briefs, feared replacement. There were also detailed notes about Camilla's growing shadow over the crown's narrative. Diana didn't mask her fear that Camilla's influence would not only replace her publicly but rewrite the very fabric of her legacy. Diana believed the press would be weaponized to portray her as unstable, emotional, unreliable, while Camilla would quietly become the institution's choice of stability and tradition. It wasn't just fear, it was foresight. She wrote about secret meetings she believed took place without her knowledge, agendas hidden behind charitable facades, and strategies to distance the public memory of her from the monarchy's future plans. One particularly gut-wrenching section referenced her concern that after her death, a campaign would begin not just to bury her story, but to erase her from the bloodline of power. She predicted that her sons would be used as symbols, not leaders, that Charles would elevate Camilla's image while quietly shifting the monarchy's emotional allegiance away from Diana. Her countermeasure? Tapes. Coded messages, recorded on analog cassettes, distributed to key individuals outside royal influence. But even here, Diana's fear bled through. She noted that several of those tapes had gone missing, possibly intercepted. William realized then that his mother's paranoia was not delusion, it was diagnosis. And yet, amid the heartbreak and strategic warnings, one thread connected it all: Catherine. Diana had written that Catherine's silence was her strength, and that the real war wouldn't be fought in tabloids, but in quiet rooms where alliances are formed and stories are rewritten. Diana had foreseen a power struggle within the palace, one that would pit legacy against influence, truth against revision. And she believed Catherine was the only one capable of surviving it without becoming corrupted by it. William, now immersed in these pages, understood his mother's heartbreak and her genius. She hadn't just written a will, she had mapped out a survival plan. And then came the most unsettling part of the vault's contents, a sealed black envelope marked confidential to be given to Catherine Middleton, and no one else. With trembling hands, William opened the envelope meant for his wife. Inside was a 4-page handwritten letter, intimate, profound and prophetic. Diana had written to a woman she'd only met once, yet entrusted with her entire future. "You will be tested," she warned Catherine. "But you must never break. The crown will depend on your silence and your strength." The letter, written in Diana's unmistakable cursive, didn't open with pleasantries. It opened with truth. She began by recalling the day she first laid eyes on Catherine, not during a formal engagement or royal affair, but at a quiet charity event where their paths had briefly crossed. Diana wrote of a feeling, not fully understood at the time, that this woman, this quiet force with kind eyes and a steel composure, would one day carry something Diana herself never could: peace within the chaos. She admitted that she had seen hundreds of women paraded through palace doors, but Catherine stood apart. Not because of ambition, but because of restraint. Not because of what she said, but what she didn't say. Diana apologized for what she called a burden disguised as a blessing. She acknowledged that what lay ahead for Catherine would not be fair, that the institution would test her loyalty, the public would misread her silence as weakness, and that those closest to her would at times seem the furthest away. "You will not be attacked by strangers," Diana wrote. "You will be undermined by those who toast your name at dinner." She warned of a royal circle that would smile to Catherine's face while tearing her legacy thread by thread behind the scenes. It was a warning born not of paranoia but of experience. She spoke of William with maternal pride but grave concern. Diana feared that duty would harden him, silence him, even distance him from his own instincts. She spoke of Harry with warmth, but caution, writing that his emotional fire could be used against him, and that people would weaponize his heart. But most chillingly, she confessed a truth she had not dared put into her official will. "I did not leave this to my sons because I feared they would be forced to choose loyalty over legacy." Instead, she chose Catherine. She called her the quiet architect of the crown's survival. Within the letter, Diana instructed Catherine to preserve what she called "my truths," a sealed collection of recordings, journals, letters, and personal statements designed not to expose but to protect. Diana believed that the monarchy was hurtling toward collapse unless someone anchored it with conscience, compassion, and control. She didn't see Catherine as a disruptor. She saw her as the shield, a living safeguard against manipulation, vanity, and decay. The letter closed with haunting clarity: "They will try to silence you, but history will remember who held the line." Staggered, William realized that every move his mother had made was deliberate. But the question remained: what truths had Catherine unknowingly inherited? At the bottom of the vault lay an unassuming wooden box. Inside, a curated collection of personal records, cassette tapes, and restricted letters, documents so sensitive they could shatter the royal institution from within. Diana hadn't just foreseen conflict, she'd gathered the evidence, and now Catherine was its keeper. The lid creaked open, revealing not chaos but calculation. Labeled, numbered, cross-referenced. This was not the stash of a panicked woman. This was an archive, built piece by a mother who knew she would be silenced. At the top were the tapes, dozens of them. In one, Diana spoke plainly, her voice barely above a whisper. She described moments where she believed she was being followed. Cars that showed up too often. Calls that never had voices on the other end. In another, she confessed she had no doubt her public downfall had been orchestrated not by strangers, but by those sitting just a few chairs away at royal banquets. Her words weren't just confessions, they were indictments. Beneath the tapes were letters, some bearing foreign seals. Diana had written to world leaders, including those in countries where monarchy had long been abolished. She asked questions, sought counsel. There were hints she had planned to establish humanitarian alliances beyond the crown's reach. One document even proposed a joint global initiative that bypassed the royal foundation entirely. But the most damning piece was an internal palace memo, unsigned but printed on official stationery. In it, a senior aide detailed a strategy to reframe Diana's image, posthumously citing public sympathy management and long-term memory recalibration. It was never meant for outside eyes. Now, it was in Catherine's hands. There were pages upon pages detailing Diana's philanthropic vision, a handwritten list named specific charities and grassroots movements. She begged the next queen to protect many of which had been defunded or forgotten over the last 2 decades. She urged Catherine to revive them, warning that the crown's survival would depend on reconnecting to the people, not ruling above them. Then came the interviews, never broadcast, never released. Transcripts revealed Diana's unfiltered thoughts on succession, Camilla's influence, and her view that the monarchy needed a mother, not just a monarch. She did not plead for power. She warned of its misuse. But one document stood alone. Titled Line of Breakage, it was a scathing psychological map of the monarchy's future. Diana had predicted fractures at every level between brothers, between generations, between duty and humanity. She circled one date, underlining it in red: when the second son walks away, the crown will bleed unless the woman holds the line. It was not prophecy. It was a calculated projection, and it had begun to unfold exactly as she feared. But if Catherine now held the most dangerous truths of the monarchy, why hadn't she been told? The answer wasn't silence, it was surveillance. For months, strange patterns followed Catherine: misplaced documents, overheard whispers, intercepted calls. But it wasn't until William accessed Diana's surveillance log that he realized Catherine had been monitored, not protected. And worse, someone inside the palace had been leaking her movements to external forces. The paranoia that Catherine had quietly carried for years suddenly had context. Every ignored gut instinct, every inexplicable security error, every meeting that somehow made it to the tabloids, none of it was coincidence. Diana had warned of what's key, hers among them. But William hadn't taken it literally until now. He began cross-referencing the list of names his mother had flagged in the vault with current staff rosters. The overlap was chilling. One aide in particular stood out, a close associate of Camilla's, recently appointed to oversee internal security reviews. That same aide had quietly requested 2 departmental transfers linked directly to Catherine's schedule and staff rotation. The trail wasn't just suspicious, it was damning. William pushed further. He accessed archived CCTV logs that should have been restricted and found multiple unauthorized access points. Someone had remotely viewed footage of Catherine's private meetings. Meetings that took place inside areas believed to be secure. Meetings that included discussions on Diana's charitable legacy, her relationship with the press, and plans for reviving key humanitarian efforts. Someone had been watching Catherine build Diana's vision and cataloguing every step she took. As the pieces came together, the emotional weight crushed them both. Catherine, ever composed, confessed to moments when she felt surrounded by silence that felt staged, phone calls that clicked, windows left ajar, people who entered a room moments before she arrived, then exited without explanation. She had kept it to herself, unwilling to feed the very hysteria they feared others would exploit. But now, with proof in William's hands, the silence broke, and it broke hard. There were no official accusations, no press briefings. But internally, the palace began to fracture, trust dissolved, and for the first time in years, Catherine stepped back from the spotlight, not out of fear, but straight DI. Because Diana's enemies hadn't vanished after her death, they had simply shifted their gaze, waiting for the next woman who dared to reshape what power looked like in the House of Windsor. But just when William believed he'd uncovered the full extent of the deception, one final envelope fell from the vault's lining, and it bore the Queen's insignia. Tucked behind the velvet lining was a sealed envelope, stamped with Queen Elizabeth II's own insignia. It contained a single-page letter dated 6 months before her death, and in a stunning twist, it revealed the late Queen knew about Diana's vault and quietly supported Catherine's rise all along. The signature was unmistakable, the handwriting deliberate, the words, though brief, sent a ripple through everything William thought he understood about his grandmother's silence in her final years. The letter opened with a single statement: "There are legacies the crown was not ready to carry, but we must nonetheless." The Queen acknowledged Diana's vision, calling it bold, necessary, and ahead of its time. She wrote of regrets of watching the monarchy isolate the very woman who had breathed humanity into it. Elizabeth admitted she had underestimated Diana's impact, only to realize too late that history would favor the heart, not the hierarchy. And now, she said, a decision had been made to honor that truth quietly, but irrevocably. She spoke of Catherine not as an outsider, but as a stabilizing force, a woman who had borne the weight of scrutiny, betrayal, and silence, and done so with dignity. The Queen praised her loyalty, her discipline, her refusal to exploit attention for power. She has carried the storm with grace. The letter read, and never once asked for shelter. It was clear this wasn't just admiration. It was endorsement. The monarch, stoic, immovable, often emotionally distant, had handed her trust to Catherine without ceremony, without press, without public declaration. She had known, and she had approved. Buried within the letter was something even more unexpected, a reference to a private council, one William had never heard of. A meeting that took place in Balmoral, with 3 advisors and the Queen alone. No minutes, no records. Only a decision unstated in specifics, but clearly centered around Catherine's role in the royal future. She is not to be shielded, Elizabeth wrote, but she must be watched over, not for her safety but for ours. The message was unmistakable. Catherine's purpose wasn't merely symbolic, it was strategic. There was a single sentence in the letter that hinted at quiet tensions between Elizabeth and Charles, a veiled line that read, "He believes legacy is passed through name. I believe it is passed through endurance." It was the Queen's final word on who truly carries the crown forward, not the loudest, not the bloodline alone, but the one who outlasts, outlives, and outshines adversity with restraint. The letter closed with a final handwritten note: "Should the hour come, she has my trust and my mark." But this wasn't just about legacy, it was about succession. And someone else had found out about the vault. Someone with everything to lose. Hours after the vault was accessed, palace insiders reported a furious confrontation behind closed doors. Camilla, red-faced and trembling, stormed out of a private meeting with Charles. She had found out Catherine's inheritance, and sources claim her response was chilling. "If she takes what's mine, I will destroy her." What began as whispers soon erupted into a full-blown storm within the palace walls. Camilla demanded immediate access to the vault's contents, insisting that as queen consort she had the right to see everything Diana left behind. But Charles, visibly shaken after being briefed by William, refused. It wasn't just a protective gesture. It was fear. Fear of what Camilla might do if she discovered the extent of what Diana had planned. For the first time, Charles placed a barrier between his wife and royal history, and Camilla didn't take it lightly. To her, Catherine's sudden rise wasn't coincidence, it was a calculated dethronement. A final ghostly move by Diana to reclaim influence from the grave, through the very woman Camilla had once deemed harmless. Behind closed doors, tension escalated. Briefings became battles. Camilla's inner circle began questioning why Catherine had been granted private access to royal archives without oversight. Long-time aides were pressured into reporting her movements. Meetings that once ended in polite nods now dissolved in icy silence. Camilla's tone grew sharper, her influence more aggressive. She no longer saw Catherine as a duchess. She saw her as a threat to the throne she had spent decades climbing toward. And then came the moment no one expected. William stepped in. Not in private, not behind closed doors, but publicly, in front of senior staff, defending Catherine's right to access everything Diana had entrusted. It wasn't just a husband protecting his wife. It was a future king drawing a line. And in that instant, the balance of power shifted. Camilla, once untouchable within Charles's circle, found herself isolated, her demands questioned, her intentions scrutinized. But Camilla didn't retreat, she retaliated. According to palace sources, she reached out to an influential media ally, requesting an urgent call. What was said during that conversation remains sealed, but leaks suggest she was preparing a narrative campaign aimed directly at Catherine's public image. A quiet war of perception, one she had waged before and won. Only this time the stakes were different. This wasn't just about legacy, it was about control. But as Camilla waged a silent war, Catherine remained composed. Because deep down she knew Diana's final weapon hadn't yet been unleashed. Armed with Diana's documents, Queen Elizabeth's silent approval, and William's protection, Catherine now holds the most potent weapon in the monarchy: truth. But as pressure mounts from both within and outside the palace, she faces a harrowing choice: expose the crown's secrets, or use them to transform it from within. In the days that followed the vault's revelation, Catherine did not rise to meet the chaos. She disappeared into it. No statements, no denials, no appearances. And yet, her absence only deepened her presence. Inside the palace, she began moving with quiet precision. Conversations shifted. Former critics fell silent. A new current of power stirred beneath the royal fabric, and Catherine was now its center. Without uttering a single word, she became untouchable. Because while others scrambled to preserve image, she now held substance. Unseen by the public, alliances began to form. Former aides of Diana resurfaced with renewed purpose. Members of Parliament, known for their distaste of royal excess, began signalling support for modernization, specifically through Catherine's influence. Charities that had once been defunded or forgotten suddenly received anonymous donations and strategic press coverage. Even senior figures within the church began voicing a subtle shift in tone, hinting at a return to moral clarity, humility, and grace traits they now quietly attributed to one royal woman only. Inside the palace walls, speculation grew louder. Staffers spoke of hushed rehearsals and speechwriters being summoned late into the night. Some believed Catherine was preparing to deliver a historic address not of confrontation but of transformation. A message that would rewrite not the crown's authority, but its soul. It would not be about rebellion, it would be about remembrance. Diana's remembrance. And not as a tragic figure, but as a visionary. Catherine's silence became her strategy. Her composure became her weapon. And through it, she began embodying what Diana had always believed the monarchy could become, a symbol of service rather than status. But the most haunting thread through it all was Diana's own final note to Catherine, a passage now repeated in whispers behind every curtain. Not to destroy the crown, but to save it from itself. And as all eyes turned toward Catherine, one mystery remained. Tucked deep within the vault was a single untouched box, smaller than the rest. Sealed, not in wax, but with a golden ribbon and a handwritten tag that read, "For Charlotte only. No one knows what's inside, not even William. But one day it will be opened, and when it is, another chapter will begin." A story doesn't end, it merely waits. Because Diana's legacy isn't resting in peace. It's waiting to rise. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.